So my presentation is on Chlamydia Trachomatis. I'm pretty sure I'm not basically pronouncing that correctly, but you know what? It's the end of the semester and I want to get this over with and I want my 50 points. So let's do this. So chlamydia is an infection with Chlamydia trachomatis, which is the kingdom is bacteria. The phylum is Chlamydiae, the class is Chlamydiae, and the order is Chlamydialis. The fungi is a sexual transmitted disease. It is a genus of the pathogenic bacteria that is an obligate intracellular parasitic basically bacteria. It was intentionally thought to be a virus because it was so small and tiny that its infectivity is retained after filtration through filters used to separate viruses from bacteria. And here is a little chart that shows some of the kingdoms, and you can see chlamydia right there. So some of the characteristics is that it is an obligate aerobic intercellular parasite of eukaryotic cells. It is gram negative, and it is a coccid or rod shape. It's between both, and it has a cytoplasmic membrane and outer membrane similar to gram negative bacteria, which basically makes it classified as a gram negative. It does lack a peptidoglycan cell wall, so that is one of the biggest characteristics of it. The chemical characteristics, this one I could not understand for the life of me, but I'm going to definitely try to explain it. It's composed of LPS, which is a lipopolysaccharide component. It does have the D-glucosamine long chain with 3 hydroxy fatty acids, 2 keto, 3 deoxyoctanoic acid, and phosphate into a molar ratio of approximately, which is what they basically call it when it does come down to a molar ratio, it's 25326, respectively resembled as a enterobacterial LPS of the RE chemotype. And to the right of the little diagram, you could see a lot of little scientific stuff. Okay, so the organism that causes diseases like this is the microorganism is responsible for trachoma. It's basically a disease which the conjunctiva of the cornea starts to become scarred, leading to blindness. I also found out that sometimes, well, most of the time, when you do have this and you prolong it, your eyelashes start to grow inwards, which is pretty crazy. It looks ridiculous, like, oh my goodness, I could not. Trachoma is the leading cause of a preventable blindness in the world and is especially prevalent in the Middle East, Asia, and parts of Africa. The PID, which is a pelvic inflammatory disease, is an infection of the uterus and the fallopian tubes that causes pelvic pain and fever. Infections near the testicles is the epididymitis, a chlamydia infection that can inflate the coiled tube located beside each testicle. The prostate gland is also infected as well. It's rare, but the chlamydia organism can spread to the man's prostate gland. There are infections in newborns as well, which is usually basically brought by the mother, and the chlamydia infection passes through the vaginal canal during the child's delivery, causing pneumonia and serious eye infections. The ectopic pregnancies, they hurt really bad, but this basically occurs when a fertilized egg implants itself and grows on the outside of the uterus, usually in a fallopian tube. And here I have a chart of the pelvic inflammatory disease and the ectopic pregnancy. There is also another side effect. It's basically infertility, and it's when the chlamydia infections produce no sign or symptom and cause scarring from the fallopian tubes. So it does make the woman infertile. Reacting arthritis. So people who do have people who do have arthritis do end up developing a higher risk of reactivating it, and it's called Reader syndrome. The host or reservoir for Chlamydia trachomatis is a parasite that is intracellular that replicates inside the host. It is a heterotroph, which means it relies on the host for energy to reproduce. Reservoir is humans. They are the only natural reservoir host for Chlamydia trachomatis. The source is Chlamydia, CT, bacteria, which comes into physical contact with the mucosal surface of an uninfected sexual partner. The life cycle is basically explained here in this little chart. So it starts off with an infection particle called the elementary body right here. It then enters via endocytosis, and it will then produce endocytosis once it comes in contact with the host cell. After 8 hours, the EB are now intercellular and involved with the glycogen and convert into reticular bodies in the vesicle. They then begin to multiply rapidly. No fast bunnies. When the RBs start to divide within 12 to 21 hours, they conclude to multiply in the RBs in the red blood cells and in an insertion body. After about 24 to 36 hours, the reticular bodies convert once more back into basic bodies. They become basic. EBs are then let go from the host cell and go through lysis in the cell wall of the host, or wherever the inclusion site was intacted, and now they are basically back released into the extracellular space where it was located. The EBs are then released to go and infect similar cells, but they can also be transmitted, which will end up infecting another human, so another host. The way they're transmitted is a spread of human to human, so vaginal, oral, or anal sex, animal to human by cats and rodents, basically, and then also basically coming into contact with humans. The vector must come from another human to human. The vector to animal can be transferred from vector, being as a Tom and Jerry situation. Basically, the cat eats the mouse, the cat starts to go around the human, and etc. The treatment is azithromycin. Azithromycin is basically good for everything. Doxycycline is also another treatment. You do need to complete all the doses or the infection may return. The way you do prevent it is avoidable and preventable. You can limit your sex partners and ask them to be tested before you act in sexual activities. Basically, do not become Energizer bunnies. Use condoms. There are researchers testing out vaccines to prevent it from spreading, but as for now, they are just testing it and curing it to control it. And here are my references. I hope this presentation was okay. It's already 8:41, so thank you and have a great rest of the semester.